would like to join us, keep standing. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. This is a big night for ACHD. This is our budget hearing, and it's one of the most important votes that we're going to take. But first, we need to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda, and items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these action items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All of these items are action items. Does anyone wish to pull one off? If
Madam
not,
President, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're at the regular agenda. This is an action item. This is the fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20 public hearing presentation. It's a request for adoption. There will be two motions made. One will be to approve the budget and one will be approve the 2018 property tax certification. This is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing and we will hear from Christine Tandler, who is our ACHD budget coordinator.
Good evening, Madam President, Commissioners. Christine Tandler, Budget Coordinator. I am here to present the public hearing, which is a decision briefing on the ACHD FY19 budget. All of the statutory requirements for ACHD have been met in accordance with this for this meeting. The budget summary is shown on the screen. We do have a balanced budget. We're showing a total revenue of about $130 million. Of that, we've got new revenue of $112 million. We also are utilizing about $7.2 million in cash reserves for the Cloverdale Emergency Project in conjunction with ITD. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. On the expenditure side, we've got a $68.5 million capital budget. This is the depiction of revenue in a pie chart. As you can see, property taxes make up about 30% of our revenue, followed by Highway Users Fund, which is the fuel taxes, impact fees paid by developers for development, and then Ada County registration fees are our top four revenue sources. The proposed expenditures at $130 million, you can see that capital is 53% of our overall budget, followed by maintenance at 22%. Those are all our operational maintenance costs, and then engineering at 12%. I'm just going to go through a few of the division descriptions in the next few slides. The overhead division is most of the support departments at the district. We've got the planning and project division, which is where the integrated 5-year work plan is created. The neighborhood plans are done. The capital project management sits in the planning and project division as well. In the maintenance division, we've got under maintenance management and the fleet services, we have our Safe Sidewalk program, which is where we do a lot of our ADA compliance throughout the valley. We also have the Adams and Cloverdale yards that take care of all the chip seal, crack seal, all of those activities throughout the district. Engineering, all our project inspection is done within engineering. Traffic ops and congestion management with the signal installations, the maintenance, all of the striping is taken care of through here. And within the development services department, we have all of the development applications for our booming construction and development that's happening around here. Some of the operational highlights for FY19 is continuing with road signage and striping. We are continuing installation of the radar signs that we've put up, some in FY18. In stormwater, we're going to continue on the basin revegetation as well as our obligation for NPDES monitoring. As you can see, we have some various plans going on both in the Boise West End and in the Eagle neighborhood in our planning department, and we're updating our bike map and we'll be printing new bike maps this year. Maintenance is planning on chip sealing another 415 miles next year, as well as upgrading the decant station over at the Adams location. The proposed capital budget, roadways, between roadways and intersections is about 50% of the budget, followed by capital maintenance. These are projects where we do a more significant application on the roadway than just a chip seal. It's the overlay projects. And then followed by about $10 million for community programs. Some of the major community program projects that are planned in our core community program allocation, we've got Ash Park Lane and then Cole Kettering Avenue to Mountain View. And in the VRF community program allocation, we have Columbus, Kootenai to Overland, another Kootenai project up there, as well as Poplar. In the various phases of capital projects, I just kind of want to highlight some of these. So we're beginning design on the Gowan Road Bridge west of I-84. 10 Mile and Victory, as well as 10 Mile Victory to Overland, is also going to be designed in FY19. And in conjunction with ITD, we are designing the intersection of Chinden and Locust Grove. The right-of-way purchases that are happening in FY19 is the Cole Road and Victory Road intersection, as well as Cole south to McLaughlin. The 10 Mile corridor between Ustick and Chinden, this is the one that McMillan to Chinden is the one that Costco will be building in 2020. Again, the major capital project, the big one that came up in FY19 is the emergency project with ITD overpass. We are doing 2 miles of Cloverdale to complete the southern section of Cloverdale south of the interstate between Ustick and Chinden, and then Cole Road I-84 to Franklin, as well as Cole Road intersection. And then the big one on State Street is State and Hollister, and that is a federal aid project. Staff recommendation is to approve the FY19 proposed budget and authorize the commission president to sign the property tax certification. Again, as Commissioner Baker stated, I will need 2 separate motions. I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions of staff?
Yes.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, as we've talked about the property taxes and the levies and the proposed budget, have you any idea what the new levy rate will be as opposed to what it is currently? What it could be? I know it's based on property values.
Right, so the certification allows us to get the information over to the assessor's office, who then does the calculation to set the levy rate. From the latest market values that I've received from the assessor's office, the total market value in the valley is up about $6 billion. So we are going to see an estimated decrease in our levy rate of about 6.5%.
Do you have any idea what that number would be after the 3 zeros?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I hate giving exact numbers. 8623 is what I'm looking at right now.
And what is it today?
9238.
Okay. Right along that question, if the budget passes as explained, what do you think the dollar and cent figure effect would be on the average home here in the valley or in the county? And you can make an assumption.
I have not prepared that. Yeah, I could do the calculation. So if you'll give me, so last year.
For those of you who weren't here last year, the impact was $5 to $8 a year.
Assuming the assumption that I have to make is that on a $300,000 home last year and a $300,000 home this year, I can't guess on what the property value increase would have been, is a difference of about $15.
15. Okay.
But if there's an increase in property values, I can't take that into consideration. It's not something that I know those values.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes, I have probably 3 or 4 questions. Following up on Commissioner Goldthorpe's questions, yes, the levy rate will likely go down somewhat. But haven't property tax values increased this year somewhere on average of, from the assessor's office, about 12 to 15%, or?
I don't have that information available. I know that when Bob McQuaid was here in early March, I think he was around 10 to 12%.
So even though our levy rate goes down, an individual homeowner's property taxes are likely to go up because their assessed values have gone up so much over the last year. What was the amount of our property tax? I know these numbers are in here, I just want to get them on the record. What was the amount of our property tax for the current fiscal year, 2018?
What was the property tax certification? I don't have the exact certification. The amount in the budget includes some replacement money. It was about 36.5 million or 36.7 million.
Okay, let's just go with the amount that's in our
Okay.
current year original budget.
37 million.
37,025,000, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what's the proposal in this year's budget?
39,560,000.
And that's an increase of what amount?
About 6.5%.
6.5%, okay. And the dollar amount's about, what, 2,535,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I had one. It really doesn't matter how much the property tax, how do I put this? Our budget is set. So we levy for 39 million. We can't collect more than that from the individual property owners, can we?
Correct. The only times in the past when we have collected over what our certification is and over what our budget is because we do every year have a delinquency report. So as those delinquent taxes come in, but that's nothing that we do levy on because it's something we've levied on in the past and they're just catching that back up.
So if the property tax, say that the assessed value would allow us to collect 45 million because just of the inflated values, we can still only collect, say, 39 million.
Correct, because that is what we published.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing and we'll call people up to testify. There really isn't anybody signed up, so if anybody wishes to testify on this matter, just come on forward. Give your name and address for the record, and I don't know how many are out there, so let's keep it to, say, 4 minutes per testimony. So.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Dallas Brown, 2215 North 34th Street. Just to make a comment, I had one question.
Move the,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
thank you.
I just had one question. Is the budget amount being dedicated to community planning and programs down from last year? Wasn't it? No, it's the same.
Christine will be able to answer that question. We designate a certain percent of the budget to that, at a minimum.
So in community programs for the FY 2018 budget, it is $15 million, but that also includes some very significant projects that are included in there. Our economic development projects that are in there are Pine, Locust Grove to Meridian, as well as Emerald and Americana. And those were included in the community programs in FY 18, and that project is no longer being funded, or that program. So that's the difference.
Economic development, not necessarily community programs, although they're sort of put together.
But excuse me, Madam President, on the core and on the VRF projects, we do maintain a specific level of funding.
Okay, sorry, let me just grab my. So I wanted to thank the council for addressing concerns the Sunset neighborhood had about the intersection at Veterans for neighbors that are disabled. We did examine the intersection between Boise State and Ann Morrison and found that that structure there is sufficient for specialized bicycles and chairs to cross the intersection. So as long as it's the same as what's going in there, that'll work great. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your transparency and public engagement. We had a national night out recently, and some Boise police officers who've been patrolling our neighborhood had mentioned that they really felt the temporary stop signs that are currently in the Sunset neighborhood to mitigate traffic while the project is going on there at Veterans and State. They felt that it really had increased safety in our neighborhood, and were disappointed to find out that those stop signs are temporary. Through recent meetings, I am on the board for our neighborhood association, and different neighbors coming forward. Sunset plans to request a traffic study 6 weeks after that Veterans and State project is complete, and not just a traffic study for one particular street, but for a neighborhood-wide study. We feel like it's time for stop signs, crosswalks, signals, and speed limits to be addressed. We would like our neighborhood to start having similar treatments to our sister neighborhood, the North End, as the sidewalks and grid and stop signs and beautiful crosswalks and safety features for parks, schools, residential areas, and small businesses are fashioned just east of us. We feel that we have population density similar.
Bring 'em up.
And we also feel that economic development for small businesses in areas that are ripe to be similar to Hyde Park are being impeded by the lack of pedestrian access. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you for taking comments.
Okay, well, we look forward to having that request come forward to, from your neighborhood.
And then there's signatures we need to get, is that correct? From the neighborhood to support the request?
Yes.
How many?
We can get with.
Yeah, they can go if you know.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, anyone else?
She's brave.
No one? Okay, going once. Okay, going twice. I'll close the public hearing. And commission, so the first motion that we'll need is to approve the fiscal year 1920 budget.
Well, Madam President, I want to thank staff for the work that's gone on this year in producing the budget. I know we've gone through these line by line, debated issues, and I think that the budget represents the best we can provide to the taxpayers for fiscal year 19 and 20. So I will move that we approve the fiscal year 19/20 budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnold?
Thank you. I will not, I cannot support the motion on this budget. We always hear the argument, or often hear the argument, well, the levy rate's gonna go down. The levy rate's gonna go down because property values have gone up and there's growth in the valley. But the fact is, the increase in values seems to outpace the decrease in the levy rate, and property tax bills go up every year. I have too many of my constituents who simply can't afford it. People who are elderly on fixed incomes, they've been in their home for 40 or 50 years, and their property tax bills have just become unmanageable through no fault of their own. They haven't done anything to their home. It's just simply a matter of somebody decides their property value has to go up every year, and it does. So saying the levy rate's gonna go down doesn't give any comfort to my constituents. If we keep the property tax amount the same, the levy rate will go down more, and perhaps we would give the taxpayers some much-needed relief. I asked our staff to put together some information on our budget revenues versus actual over the last 3 years. In fiscal year 2016, our revenue exceeded our original projections by $9.1 million. In fiscal year 17, it exceeded it by $5.5 million. And this year, which isn't even over, we've already exceeded our expected budget revenue by $2.1 million. So I cannot support a property tax increase given those windfalls just over the last 3 years. And we could go back farther and you would see that the number is even higher. Accordingly, I'm going to offer a substitute motion, and we'll see if I get a second, but my motion is to approve the budget as written with 2 changes: to reduce the property tax amount back to the level that of last year's budget of $37,025,000, which is a decrease of $2,535,000, and to increase the projected impact fees by the same amount. That balances the budget. It doesn't change what we're spending. It just changes where we're gonna project that the money's gonna come from. And it gives property tax holders a much needed break. So that's my motion.
Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Goldthorpe?
Yes, I asked the questions that I did for specific purposes, not just to, as was mentioned, nag about how lower levies might result in lower taxes, because as we all know, they haven't. But I would be remiss to even begin to think, because of the way I am, that past experience will dictate future results. Professionally, that was always a big mistake for me to ever even think of making back in my past life. I talked to a number of constituents as well, and I would say that my particular district is likely the most conservative part of Ada County. And when I ask folks how they get to work, how they get to shop, how they get to recreate, and if they like the amount of time it takes them to get there these days, without equivocation or without exception, they all say no. And then I ask them if they minded what we charged them extra last year, the $5 to $8. No. Why not? Because we need the congestion mitigated, because we need sidewalks, because we need safe routes to school, and you guys are way too far behind in getting things done. And just so you know, we're 10 to 15 years behind getting things done in my district. We have just under 17,000 homes platted in just a part of my district, and no funds allocated to fix the problems that are coming. So this is, regardless of the way you do the math, in my mind, it's a far safer route to take to know what money is going to come in, because if we do underestimate it by however much, that money's already spent. We have $750 million worth of projects that we have on the drawing board in one shape or another, with no funding available for probably 90% of them. So this money will not be wasted one way or the other, regardless of how it's figured. Thank you.
And if I could, President
Mr.
Baker, I
Rhodes?
just
Sure.
wanted to make a comment. I think that everybody on this board thinks very, very thoughtfully about property tax. Nobody likes property tax. I don't like property tax. When we go through developing the budget, I think what you heard Commissioner Arnold say is that we all agree that this is the appropriate expenditure. We go through and look at every staff position, we look at every maintenance costs, we look at every capital project and say, are these what the public deserves for their tax dollars or not? And we spend months doing that. So then the question is, how do you pay for it? And this commission has always had a spirited discussion about whether a property tax or gas tax or vehicle registration fees, just what's the appropriate way to align use of the service with what you pay for the service. So we don't control gas tax. We don't have any say in that. The impact fee program, I mean, the reason I didn't second the motion is that it's a very structured program. And it's very detailed, it's related to our capital improvement plan. And so if we are to over project on the impact fees, you know, it's hard to take a project that we plan to complete and say, well, we didn't collect impact fees, so we're gonna stop 75% of the way because we don't have the fees, and we got to balance every year. That would just not work. I mean, to have a project that's only 3/4 done, you know, would not serve the community. So that's why I made the motion. That's why I think the budget is appropriate, and appreciate people coming today to at least see how the debate goes. Thanks.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Ms. Arnold?
Yes, I would just like to add something. The numbers I read, the amounts that, the 9.1 million number that I quoted, increase over what was projected in fiscal year 16, that was impact fees. So we had a windfall of 9.1 million in 16. In 17, it was 5.5 million. We actually had other revenue numbers that came in higher than projected, but I just looked simply at the impact fees, and we have underprojected those numbers consistently every single year that I've been on this commission, except I think one. So I think it is a pretty safe way to project our budget. We have all seen the growth numbers in this valley. We've seen the things that are currently approved. We know there are going to be impact fees paid on those. We've seen a number of projects that are going to be coming before us fairly quickly that will increase those impact fee numbers. So it's not a pie in the sky number. It's based on what's really happening here. And I guess we do have a philosophical difference on how do you pay for it. Property tax is not the appropriate way to pay for transportation improvements. They should be paid for primarily by user fees, and we need to move more in that direction. Those who use the roads pay for them. Property tax is used, and it's increased every year because it's easy. It's allowed by the legislature to increase it 3% plus growth, and most government agencies do it because it's easy. It's easier than going to the legislature and saying, here are our needs, here are the tools that we want to look at to do that. So yeah, we have a philosophical difference on how you pay for it, and you know, I've been pretty consistent, and Commissioner Woods, you've been consistent in advocating for property tax increases every year, so.
Well, to be clear, I'm not advocating for property tax. We have a responsibility to execute for the community. That's the one tool we have. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not dreaming that the legislature is going to all of a sudden just fund it all with gas tax. So
Well, they
that's
gave
what
us
we're
House
supposed
Bill
to do.
312
They certainly
Okay.
did. That
2 years ago,
was
and
very
that
helpful.
dramatically increased our budget.
Well, as you can see, that's a discussion that we've had quite a bit. Is there any more comments regarding passing this budget? Well, I have a few things to say. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is our primary duty. I mean, if we did nothing else all year, this is the one thing we have to do in order to make this organization work. The organization that we ran for and the organization that we took an oath to uphold. Without a budget, can't do potholes, can't stripe the roads, can't overlay the roads, can't do traffic studies, can't do anything if we don't have a budget that we pass. Everything is going up. All the costs are going up. I understand Commissioner Arnold's point of view about property tax. No one likes paying property tax. No one likes levying property tax. Trust me. It's the last thing any of us want to do. The construction costs are going up. and employment costs are going up, and somehow we have to meet those. We can't continue to do more with less or more with the same. And the needs that are facing this organization now and into the foreseeable future can only be done if we have the revenue to meet them. And one of the ways that we have, may be easy, but it's basically the only thing we have that we have total control over, is the property tax, to the extent that it's 3% plus growth. Now, in the past, we haven't taken it because of certain reasons. During the Great Recession, I didn't vote for property tax increases because it just didn't make any sense to do that. However, in this day and age, with the growth that we're seeing, with the needs that we're seeing, we have to have the revenue from someplace, or nothing, or we're gonna get so far behind, it's gonna be impossible to even begin to think about catching up, much less try to stay ahead of, which clearly we're not even being able to do that. So I obviously will be voting for the motion. Some of the things that happen in the future, or some of the things that we have emergencies, and we have to plan for those emergencies, not exactly what's going to happen, but the fact that we need the money for it. Snowmageddon cost us millions and millions of dollars we did not anticipate. We never thought we would get that much snow. Global warming was not supposed to give us that much snow, but we got it. And then who could have anticipated that the accident on the interstate was going to render the Cloverdale Bridge inoperable? You know, the accident happened right under the bridge, not 20 feet on one side or 20 feet on the other. Gave us an opportunity for the state to widen that bridge to 4 lanes, but that meant ACHD had to do the approaches, because right now it's only 2 lanes. These are the things we can't anticipate, but we still have to plan for. And the way we do that is to create the revenue to meet those needs. We've got plenty of projects that can fill up any revenue that we have. So with that, as I said, I am going to vote for the motion, and I'm going to now call for the question. So, all in favor of approving the fiscal year 19-20 budget as presented by staff and as has been published, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay, based on the property tax.
Motion carries. All right, the next item before us is to certify the 2018 property tax certification. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, that completes our regular agenda. The next item is public communications. Is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on any topic? If not, oh, come ahead, sir. Go ahead and give us your name and address for the record.
Roger Cantlin.
Well, wait until you get up to the microphone so it's on the record.
Roger Cantlin, 8401 South Cole Road in Boise.
Okay.
Late to the dance, but I thought this might help you going forward. I've developed several million square feet of shopping center with Albertsons, Target, Fred Meyer, and the list goes on throughout the Northwest. And what I see now is a really difficult time for a lot of people at the lower end of the spectrum. I don't know how some of them making $1,000 or $1,500 a month afford to drive a car and put food on the table for the kids, and let alone pay taxes. I would suggest you consider for in the future sort of a combination of their deal. What I'd do is I'd roll the extra impact fees you're getting, 9 million, then 5 million. I would fix your budget based on your tax rate, but I'd roll whatever savings come in to offset those costs. You also have a budget that should have some contingency dollars in it. That way you know that you're gonna get the dollars because you've set it against the property taxes. But you also can take dollars from the previous year, which you now know, and apply those to the revenues. I gotta tell you, I've never had a problem in 40 years in business coming up with a few extra $1,000 off of a project versus the grandmother or the child or the single mother that's really struggling to put food on the table. So that would be my comment for the budget in the future.
Okay.
That way I assume you allow me to talk.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
right, anyone else? If not, meeting adjourned. Oh, you want me to sign it right this second, huh?